So recently, I finished 2 different types of raids in Final Fantasy XIV Online. The beauty of raids in Final Fantasy XIV is you essentially have different methods of completing these raids, and on top of that, different difficulty options. I've never heard of this coming from World of Warcraft, where there are only options like raids, heroics, and looking for raid. But in Final Fantasy XIV, they give you different options. If you want to farm mounts or enjoy the story, Final Fantasy introduces an unsynced option. You can run any lower level instance with your level 90 gear. But if you want a little bit more of a challenge, then you can join said instance as synced, which does exactly what it sounds like. It syncs your character's level to the raid's maximum level. If you're new to Final Fantasy XIV like I am, this resembles solo trials as you're leveling up through A Realm Reborn. During the story, if you've over-leveled a certain area, say you're level 50 and you're at level 30 in the story, it syncs your level back down to level 30, so your character level goes back down to that content's level. But Final Fantasy XIV doesn't stop there. It goes even further. It introduces Mine, or minimum item level no echo. Say goodbye to all your high-end gear, buddy, because that high-end item level gear from the newest raid is completely synced down to whatever the minimum item level is for that raid. If you saw my last video, I tried out Thorn March for the first time, which is an 8-man raid, and we synced it. So all of my friends who are level 90 joined the raid, and it was 7 level 90s synced, and me, who was a level 57. And it was quite a challenge. It gave me the idea of what it was like going through that raid when it first came out. And I think that's really cool that Final Fantasy XIV introduces this synced option. More recently, my community, you guys, ran me through Coils of Bahama, and because of my lack of knowledge of how difficult this raid can be synced, we ran it unsynced, just for story purposes, because I wanted to see what the story was like. The story and content took around 3 hours while I streamed and chatted to everybody. There were a lot of great moments in this raid. I found that it wrapped up the story of Louis Schwa, Alphanod, and Alice nicely. It introduced you to Alice, which is Louis Schwa's granddaughter and Alphanod's sister. And these two twins, their purpose were different from the beginning. But through this journey and through this raid, through the different coils, which are different turns essentially of this bigger raid and this bigger story, Alice starts to understand her purpose in this world. And because it was the last time that I saw her was the beginning of A Realm Reborn, it really connected all the dots for me. The next raid that I participated in was a different format altogether. This is called an Alliance Raid, which are 3 8-man teams in one single raid. This raid was named the Crystal Tower. This in itself, instead of having some background like Coils did, to me was a complete story from beginning to end. There was no intro cinematic in the beginning of the game like Coils had. Coils was essentially a continuation from the beginning of A Realm Reborn's intro cinematic. But with Crystal Tower, you learned a lot more of the history of the Allegan Empire, what their technology was like, what the Crystal Tower's purpose was, and without trying to spoil anything, let me just say I do not hate Nero anymore after going through this adventure and this raid. Raids in this MMORPG continue with a single common theme. Everything is attached to a story. There are prerequisite quests that differ a little bit between them so far. It depends on how you unlock them and go through them, definitely. Maybe this will change in future expansions, but it seems that dungeons and raids have this similar trope. There is also a common theme coming to view for me, which seems to be once you defeat the raid or trial, there are quests to unlock more advanced versions of said instance. I've heard these terms like extreme, savage, which I'm assuming, just like the name insists, is an extreme version of the raid. The beauty of trying all these raids and dungeons in 2022 is that people have already completed them. There are numerous guides, videos, experienced players to help sprouts like myself who either want to challenge or simply enjoy the story and want to have a good old casual time. If these battle mechanics and stories are any bit of a preview of what's to come in Final Fantasy XIV, well, then I guess I'm in for a treat. I'm really excited to see what happens next. I'll probably come back after I get through the entire story and go through different extreme modes as kind of like a nostalgia type trip. But anyway, thank you all for being here. If you enjoy my adventures into different MMORPGs, please subscribe so you get notified every time I release a new video. With that being said, I will see you in the next one, paisans. Take care.